Good morning. Welcome to Long Live Third Parties Podcast. Free Press Media Press, Inc., a third parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Hello,
Yes.
friends. Welcome to Long Live Third Parties Podcast. Today we have a guest on the podcast, Jim Hedges of the Prohibition Party. So welcome, Jim. Let's get started by you kindly giving us a background about yourself and how you got involved in the Prohibition Party, maybe discussing any experiences you had with alcohol that turned you into a teetotaler.
I'm an Iowa farm boy who spent 20 years in the military. Sort of an odd military. I was a musician in Washington, but I was in the Marine Band for 20 years, and then I retired to Pennsylvania, rural central Pennsylvania. I grew up in a non-drinking family, and it never occurred when I was growing up that I ought to even taste the stuff. I had nobody, no close relatives who indulged in alcohol at all. My grandmother kept a bottle of brandy in the kitchen cupboard, actually, and she would take a swig of it if she felt a cold coming on to purify her throat, to kill the germs. But that's the only alcohol that I ever saw in any relative's house.
Interesting. So your background, your family was pretty abstainers from alcohol.
Yes. And when I was in high school and began thinking about politics, I checked out several political parties, and Prohibition is the one that appealed to me most. Not simply because it was against recreational drugs, but because it appeared to be reasonably conservative. It's not a Trump conservative party; it's a traditional conservative group.
Okay, can you kindly describe the history of the Prohibition Party?
We were organized in 1869, and we've run a presidential slate at every national election since 1872. It was organized in the northeastern states initially by reformists who were disappointed in the Republican Party. It did very well through the latter part of the 19th century. We elected a governor, a congressman, and a few hundred local officials, counties and towns. We threw two national elections to the Democrats. We defeated Blaine in '84, leading to the election of Cleveland, and we defeated get my notes right here. We defeated Hughes in 1916, which led to the election of Wilson. We never got more than about. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. We never received more than 2.3% of the national vote. But in elections that are close, Prohibition and other third parties can affect the outcome by stealing votes from one of the major candidates. 1892 was our high point with Bidwell and Cranfield. But we're still here. We're not big enough anymore to make a difference. But because of some old trust funds, which give us a basic income, we've been able to keep going.
Okay, sounds good. So kindly describe the current Prohibition Party platform.
Well, the current platform, I think thinking mostly of my own from 2016, but 2020 was not much different. We're, in some respects, traditional conservative. Like we want a stable national money, which leads us to support the gold, return to the gold standard. Now, I understand that that's a crude weapon there, but something needs to be done to stop the annual inflation each year, which the government actually plans to be 2%, rather than having a stable currency. We're America first in the sense that we put our own national interests first, not to be hostile to other countries, but to mind our own business, to not meddle in foreign elections and foreign wars. We are in favor of environmental protection. Also, we're in favor of sexual and racial equality, not to these sort of freaky, far-out democratic aspects of it right now, but in the sense of equality. We were one of the groups which promoted the women's right to vote, for example. We were the first ballot-qualified party to run a woman for vice president. This was in 1920. Those are sort of the highlights, I guess.
All right. That's a good overview. Our listeners should realize that you yourself won a tax assessor position. You won a race for tax assessor position. I read in Wiki News article that interviewed you about this, and you offered your advice as to how you won the race. And it was something I found different than the advice people tend to give about such things. So kindly share your victory for that office and what you learned and what other alternative party candidates can learn from it.
Winning in this case, stupidly simple. I picked a minor local office which had no other candidates. So I was unopposed and I got 100%. Now the purpose of doing that was to embarrass the chairman, who kept running for high office himself and never made a difference. And I wanted to show that the Prohibition Party still could go out and win local offices if we picked them carefully. I was able to, I was a assessor in a small Pennsylvania county. And I think the main thing I accomplished, other than bringing the record book up to date, was getting a tax collector fired for I can't think of the right word, but he was negligent in doing his job. As far as other people winning, some local office which has a weak candidate or no candidates, and you file your papers either as an independent or as a party member, depending on the local rules. It takes only a handful of signatures to run for local offices, and no money except for a little bit of travel to get your signatures.
So you recommend a strategy of focusing on local elections?
Yes, it's important to have a national slate as a rallying point to keep our place in the history books. But if we want to make a difference, we should concentrate on local office, where our friends and neighbors will vote for us, where we understand what's going on.
All right. Thanks for sharing that. On your website, I read what you call a skunk metaphor for alcohol and that discussed how the Prohibition Party views alcohol may be different than people perceive things. So kindly share that metaphor.
Now, I've been trying to think of where I said that, and I can't remember. You'll need to refresh my memory.
Okay, it was something to the effect of a skunk is something you want to keep in your house. You can keep it in your house if you want it, but you can't let it go to the neighbors.
Okay, well, I think maybe the point I was trying to make is if you want to drink as a matter of personal choice, that's fine with us. I mean, we think it's foolish, but we don't oppose your drinking at home as long as you stay home until you're sober and don't abuse your wife while you're under the influence. If you make your own at home, drink it at home, and stay home until you're sober, we agree that's your American right to do so. We just don't want you making the stuff and selling it in the neighborhood to make other people sick.
All right. That clarifies your position. So I read on your website that you operate what you call Camel Press. Kindly explain what that is about and maybe some books that Camel Press publishes.
The Camel Press is a hobby collection of obsolescent letterpress metal type and machinery. I called it the Camel Press because I wanted that was part of my personal image as a prohibitionist. But the Camel Press was strictly a hobby. I'm a museum docent at a nearby Living History Museum, in charge of their letterpress exhibit, and I print my own Christmas cards and some personal things. But the purpose of calling a hobby Camel Press was to publicize the Prohibition Party. Our logo is a camel, by the way.
Okay, sounds good. I read in your party's newsletter about something I haven't seen in conservative, so-called conservative literature. The fact, and it was something I was thinking about before, and it makes perfect sense to me. I noticed that in the Muslim faith, there's a strong stance against alcohol, yet most so-called conservatives consider them the enemy. So I thought it was interesting in your newsletter that you wrote an article about welcoming Muslims into the Prohibition Party because of their strong anti-alcohol stance in their faith.
Many of the Prohibition Party supporters are conservative Christians and are strongly opposed on religious grounds to including anyone but other Christians. But we do need to broaden our base. Muslims theologically are opposed to alcohol, as are some other religions, non-Christian religions. Myself and a few of the other people in leadership think that we should make a strong gesture toward getting Muslims and other non-Christians who are doctrinally dry to join with us. But it's a divisive issue in the party. Yes, it's caused us to lose some members.
Oh no, I'm sorry about that. So kindly share with us the future of the Prohibition Party.
Because our basic needs are supported by income from 2 trust funds, we're in no danger of dying. On the other hand, we don't have enough income to go out and do the ballot access work that's necessary and the campaigning that's necessary to win any very high office these days. We do have a history auxiliary, and I myself edit a history website to bring the Prohibition Party history and ideas before the public to keep our memory alive. At this point, I think probably that's the best we can do is to continue running for national office as a means of getting publicity and using that publicity to keep our basic philosophy alive and before the public.
So how can listeners to this podcast support the Prohibition Party?
Run for office. If your state doesn't make it easy to run as a Prohibition Party member, you can run as an independent and endorse our platform. Talk about our issues. If you write a letter to the editor or do a blog, and you're just a name out there, people aren't going to pay much attention to you. But if you're the endorsed candidate of a party and have qualified for the ballot, this gives you a soapbox to stand on. People will pay attention simply because you are a bona fide candidate. So it's important to run for office. It gets us publicity. It gets our platform publicity. Even if in small ways, it can make a difference. Run for office.
All right. That sounds like a good suggestion. I want to thank you for your time today, speaking on our podcast and sharing your party's views with our audience. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Well, I'm grateful for all your patience in getting this set up.
No problem. We're glad to do what we can. So we wish the Prohibition Party the best, and may you continue to keep going on, and may great things happen to you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day. Bye now.
Bye.